Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how you can sell your additional invention components for an amazing profit. So if you're someone who has done a ton of AFK creatures, whether that be abyssal creatures or corrupted creatures while you have your spring cleaner in your inventory, then you probably have a ton of extra components. You could also have a ton of extra components if you are someone who uses scavenging or uses a brooch of the gods. And if you do, you can actually make a ton of profit off of the abundant amount of invention components that you'll probably never use. So in this guide, I'm going to be showing you guys a bunch of invention items you can make and sell, which will allow you to turn these invention components into actual GP. So let's just jump into the first item. So the first item is Mechanised Chinchompas. With these items, you can sell plated parts, connector parts, as well as living components. So in order to make the Mechanized Chinchompas, you will need to go to the Goblin Technology tree, which you can do at the Technology Notice board in the Invention Guild. So you will need to get some points on the Goblin Technology tree, and when you do that, you can purchase the ability to make Mechanized Chinchompas. Now, the Mechanized Chinchompas, they are quite profitable. They are located in the Combat Support tab. So as you can see, you make 50 Mechanized Chinchompas at once, and you're using 50 red Chinchompas, 65 plated parts, 65 connector parts, and 5 living components. Both the plated parts and the connected parts are common parts, so you may have obtained them from things like disassembling items through the spring cleaner. The living components, you could have obtained those from scavenging or the divine blessing from the brooch of the gods. And then you just need to buy the red Chinchompas. Now the profit margin on these are quite high, especially if you have all of these components already. So not including the price to actually obtain these components, you're making over 400k for every 50 Chinchompas. So it is a really insane profit margin. And if you do have a ton of these parts just stacked up in your bank or in your invention pouch, you can make a ton of money off of it. So I highly recommend you guys check and see if you have the parts to do this, because the profit on them is absolutely insane. And so just to show you guys how profitable this actually is, I bought 2,000 red Chinchompas for just about 5.5 mil, and then I sold the 2,000 Mechanized Chinchompas for 20.6 mil. So it's an absurd amount of profit. And if you're someone like me who's just been stacking up their invention components, you really can start to use these and make a ton of profit off of them. Augmentors are another way to basically sell base parts, tensile parts, flexible parts, enhancing components, and powerful components. Now, the only downside is that the actual cost of all these parts, if you're actually trying to obtain them, makes this item actually unprofitable to make. So you would only want to do this if you are actually looking to sell some of these parts and you had way more than you would ever need. Otherwise, it probably isn't a great deal, but it is a way to sell any of these parts. Equipment siphons are another extremely profitable item that you can make, and they only require 50 simple parts, 5 dexterous components, and 5 precious components. This is a really nice item to make, mainly because the simple parts, they can be obtained quite easily by disassembling things like logs. And then if you want to sell some dexterous or precious components that you may have obtained through the scavenging perk or the brooch of the gods, then this is the perfect item to do that. So you can basically make just pure profit off of this. The simple parts, 50 simple parts, basically costs around 17k to obtain through disassembling logs, meaning that you're making about 150k for selling 5 dexterous and 5 precious components. Gizmo Dissolvers are another profitable item to make and sell components with. Basically, you can sell clear parts and organic parts by making these Gizmo Dissolvers, then selling them. But overall, they're a pretty good item. Both clear parts and organic parts are common invention components, so you won't be getting them through scavenging or the Divine Blessing. So you might not have an abundant amount of these, but still it is a way to sell both of those invention components. The Whetstone allows you to sell base parts and deflecting parts, both of which you probably have a lot of, especially if you AFK creatures with the Spring Cleaner. You get a lot of base parts and deflecting parts, and you can sell them by making the Whetstone. The only downside is very similar to the Augmentation Dissolver. You will need hammers in your inventory, so you'll only be able to make 28 of them at a time. Then you'll have to go bank and grab more hammers. But they are quite profitable and an excellent way to sell your base and deflecting parts. The Augmentation Dissolver is another pretty decent item to sell. You can sell your delicate parts and your cover parts by making these Augmentation Dissolvers. The only downside of this is that you need vials as well, so you will have to constantly go back and forth to the bank and in order to withdraw the vials to make the Augmentation Dissolvers. But it is a way to sell both delicate parts and cover parts, which you may have a lot of. If you're someone who has done a ton of archaeology and has disassembled a ton of archaeology relics, then you probably have a lot of extra special components, being the classic, historic, time-worn, and vintage components. If you do, you are able to make the small crates for each of these components. They do require padded parts as well as protective parts, and then also their respective components. So you can do this if you do have an abundant amount of either of these four components. That way you can sell them for some pretty good profit, especially if you have an abundant amount. Another item that you could potentially make some profit off of is the Alchemical Onyx. The Alchemical Onyx requires fortunate components, which is a rare component, as well as refined and precious components. Now, it is quite profitable if you already have the fortunate components. However, you would have only obtained them if you disassembled some rewards from clue scrolls. So you can make profit off this if you do have some fortunate components, or maybe you got lucky and got some fortunate components through the Brooch of the Gods or scavenging, but it is a way to sell those components. You can also technically make some profit off it if you are actually disassembling the items for the fortunate components. However, the Grand Exchange prices do change, and it is a bit risky just because of that. But if you do have fortunate components already, then it certainly is a way to sell those for some profit. And so that is basically all of the items that you can make in order to sell your extra invention components. I really hope at least a few of these items were helpful for you. When I personally went and researched these methods, I actually made quite a bit of money off of the Mechanised Chinchompas, so that is one that I would highly recommend you guys check out. And so if you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe for more RuneScape 3 content, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.